Music is all around us. It is the universal language. It evokes many feelings and is something to be shared and celebrated. You have found a place where all kinds of music will be celebrated. So welcome. You are tuned in to the Zen Sessions, presented by Hear2Zen magazine.
All right, today on the Zen Sessions, we're talking all things Lordi. They have a new album out. We are joined by one of our fine team, Curt, who resides in Australia with me. How you doing, Curt?
I'm good. I'm very good.
Awesome. So you have been a Lordi aficionado for some time. When did you first get into the band?
I think the term is tragic. And got into them just when they, back in the days of 2006, when the second lineup of the band won the Eurovision Song Contest. With the song Hard Rock Hallelujah, which is how a lot of people outside of Europe found out about them. And when I saw a band that sounded like Alice Cooper, Kiss, and Wasp, but if Freddy Krueger started a tribute band of that, I was kind of hooked. It was Kiss, but on steroids, which was great. So been a diehard since then.
And behind you, you can see Die Hard.
Yeah.
You made that from scratch, didn't you?
I did. As a young kid, wanting all the cool stuff that you see in movies, you learn to build things. And one of my long-standing projects has been replicas of Lordi costumes, including the Mr. Lordi behind me, which is a replica of the costume that they won Eurovision while he was wearing. So cool. Mr. Lordi has seen that and thinks it's very, very good. It constantly gets mistaken for pictures of actually Lordi, which is fun. So
that's fantastic.
Very, very weird.
And because I don't think Lordi have ever toured here, have they?
No, a couple of false starts. They have been on or announced for several festival bills that never seem to eventuate, including, I think it was 2014 or 2015 Soundwave, which I actually got them on the bill for. And then that crashed and burned. And then we had whatever one came from the ashes of that. And that crashed and burned too. And so we still haven't had Lordi out here. One day.
And I can gather when they come out, it won't be like an isolated show. It'll be a round country trip for you.
Yeah, absolutely. If they come to Australia, I'll be buying as much merch as possible and seeing every show. So
cool.
Yeah.
Now, tell us about the new release, because we can't call it just a new album, can we?
No, it is in fact 7 new albums, which is somewhat unusual. Their previous studio effort was an album called Skelectric, and it was a fictional compilation album of the mentality that Lordi were a band like Kiss, and what if they had been around since 1976 or 1975? How would those albums sound if Lordi had done them? And going all the way through influences like your classic 70s rock, and then stuff like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest with the new wave of British heavy metal, and then going into the AOR stuff of the mid to late 80s, and then more industrial things, and like, Rob Zombie, and then doing really heavy like Pantera or Metallica. How would Lordi have sounded on, those tracks? And it was really well received by fans. And so then it was pitched that they want to do 7 albums. They'll do a fictional back catalog. And so that's what they've done. There's a disco album, a full heavy metal album, a big, nice, sort of Wasp Twisted Sister 80s rock album. There's some 70s classic rock in there. And yeah, it's just nearly 5 hours worth of music just smashed out in a single release. It's pretty bonkers for any Lordi fan.
There's only, unless you bought the physical copy, there's only 1 out now. Is that right?
That's how they get you. Streaming online is currently only, I believe, Superflytrap, which is their sort of disco album. They're staggering the streaming release of the subsequent albums. So if you pre-ordered and got the box set, which is only available in that box set, you've got all the albums straight off the bat. If not, you got to wait, which is a great idea, especially when you're dropping that much content in one sitting.
And you've probably had a good chance to listen to it a few times through now.
Yeah.
Do you find that even though the 7 albums are all different, that they're cohesive in their own way?
It all sounds like Lordi, which is really cool. And that's obviously something that's super worrying when you're going to do a wild concept like this. Every song does sound like Lordi. You've still got, Lordi, Hella, Mana, Armin, and Hisi playing on the albums. You've got intros with longtime collaborators by like Ralph Ruiz, who's done a lot of their intros for their albums. So it has that cohesive Lordi style, and they're all still that kind of horror-y aspect, which is great, just with radically different sounds for the actual albums themselves.
Okay, do you think that's going to be a little hard for some Lordi fans to take in, or do you think people will actually understand what they were trying to do?
I think diehard fans do understand, and they've already done, they've set foot into this world by doing Collection back in 2020. I think it was 2020. So we already had that thing of some radically different Lordi tracks, and admittedly on first couple of listens, that album, because it's only, a handful of tracks, can be very jarring tonally. But with this, you've almost got a Lordi album for every mood, which is pretty cool. It's a really, really cool idea. And I think the way that the band have done it is really effective.
Okay. I know when I listened to it myself, like the first thing that actually came to mind is that I could see this being a Vegas residency where they did like an album a night.
Yeah.
Different production kind of thing.
It would be fantastic to see. I don't actually think Lordi have ever played one of their albums in its entirety, which is a bit of a shame because all of their back catalog, each album is a very, very cohesive album. You've got a very, it flows. They're almost like concept albums, which is very cool. Something like this would be a radically different experience for any sort of Lordi fan, rather than getting the classics like Would You Love a Monster Man and Blood Red Sandman and The Riff. You could go in and do all of Superflytrap or all of Masterbeast From The Moon, or all of just one single album and a solid hit would really work for the band. Whether or not it could be done, I'm not sure. They do have a very specific sound live, so I'm not sure how well a lot of that would translate. But I think if anybody can do it, it's going to be Lordi.
Okay. And you recently caught up with the man himself to chat. We're going to check that out.
Yeah. Got to ask him all the hard probing questions that I, as a diehard Lordi fan, would love to know the answer to with this album cycle. And
the thing is, you probably never get enough time with your heroes.
No, they say don't meet your heroes, but he's a giant nerd like I am. So, I feel like we dress the same. So I guess we've got to have some sort of rapport there.
True. All right. What we're going to do now, we're going to have a quick listen to the interview. We'll be back in a minute to talk more about the album, so just stick with us and we'll be back in a sec.
It's Curt here from Hear2Zen, and I'm talking to one of my favorite musicians on the face of the planet. They've just released 7 albums in one single drop, and I'm speaking with Lordi from the Finnish heavy metalers Lordi. How you doing?
Oh, hello. I'm good. Hey.
Nice to chat with you again. Hi. Yeah. Yeah, you guys have just dropped Lordiversity, which is 7 albums in one single release, which is an absolute bonkers idea for any band. I don't really want to talk too much about that because I'm sure everybody else covers that. But while we can, why 7 albums?
Because the record label said 10 is too much, because I wanted to do 10. That's 7. That's why it's 7, and this is the God honest truth. I mean, I wanted to do 10 to follow our previous album Collection, which was, as the fictional compilation album. So I wanted to do the full back catalog to that, which would mean 10 albums, but the label said, nah, 7 should be enough, dude. And so I was like, okay. So it's 7.
Look, 7 albums.
I've easily done the 10. I've said this, to everybody, but because it's the truth. We could have easily done the 10 because I got like leftover songs, like 35 songs or something like that. We did everything. I wrote all the songs in 3 months and we recorded, including mixing and mastering, in 9 months. And we did it under the budget that we were given. So we could have easily done the 10, and that's kind of like, labels should always listen to me.
I mean, the 7 albums is still a really, I mean, for any fan to be cool, we're getting 7 albums in a single release. That's pretty unheard of. It's pretty excellent. So, I mean, 10 would have been great, but I'm still pretty happy with 7.
Oh, I'm happy with 7 too. It's much better. It's more than 6 or 5.
Hey, look, I was expecting to get one new Lordi album after Kill Action, so to get Lordiversity was like, cool, excellent. This is right where I want to be. Now,
but this is, but you know, this leads into a very interesting paradox, or dilemma, or problem, or whatever. What the hell are we going to do next? Next time when we're going to do just one album, people are like,
yeah,
it's getting lazy now. You know?
Too much of a good thing.
It's like, and then it's like, okay, there's going to be a lot of pressure into those 10 or 11 songs on the next album. It's like,
yeah.
You know, so.
Well, let's see.
So I kind of like, I realized that, you know, that this was something that we digged a hole for ourselves that I didn't even realize that, you know, that you know, there's a hole there, and we're walking right into that.
Absolutely. Well, that brings a really interesting question. As a Lordi fan, obviously, we hear for every album cycle about how many tracks have been done, and then there's always some B-sides that show up, especially on the earlier albums. I remember I collected a bunch of the Japanese versions just to get those B-sides. Are any of the tracks on the new albums, are they demos from previous albums, or are they all written for these ones?
Nope. They're all new.
Wow,
everything is new.
That was one of the.
Nothing is old. No.
That's fantastic. That's a lot of work to put in for not even 2 years after your previous release.
Yeah, but that's how I roll. I'm very productive. I'm very creative, and that's where my life force, you know, flows from. You know, being creative and being in the zone, as I call it. You know. I just smoke and drink Pepsi, and I don't need anything else. You know, occasional sleep for a few hours, but that's, you know, when I'm so excited about creating something new, that I really don't want to go and go digging the vault, you know, to see that if there's something that. Sometimes we've done that, but usually it's because. It feels like, oh, now's the time to actually get that or that song from that and that album that was like left over, and it didn't really fit the concept of that album. Now we can do that, and we have done that 2 times, you know. And then I kind of like rewrite the song or something like that. But this time there was only one song on the demos that I was thinking about using, which is "Cut Off My Head." A song that I wrote with Bruce Kulick and Jeremy Rupolino, for Babes for Breakfast, and I listened to that song, and it could have been a song that we could have fitted on either Abusement Park or Humanimals, but fuck, it really didn't really fit in either of those. You know, it should have been on an album, you know, between those.
Yeah.
And the one that we did not release, the album that didn't fit into this 7, you know, that it would have been, if we would have done those 10 albums, then it would have been there. But then you know, so, but other than that, it's like, I enjoy creating, I enjoy writing new stuff, so I rather do fresh stuff than use the leftovers from last week, you know, from the, you know, put it in the micro, you know, so.
Absolutely. Well, you've just mentioned 2 of my favorite albums off the new one, which is Abusement Park and Humanimals. Abusement Park is just fantastic cover to cover, and I absolutely loved that. One of the things I did notice on that was the song Grr, which has, as a giant Star Wars fan, hearing Star Wars references in a Lordi song sort of really, that was exactly what I was, I didn't even know I wanted. But I heard that there's a very interesting guest star on that track, or at least I read. Is there any truth to that?
We have Chewie there.
Yeah, so actually Chewie.
Disney will now send assassins to kill me, but I have to say, sorry. There's the actor who plays Chewie.
Yep.
There, as a voice actor.
That is.
Suotamo, who's the new Chewie. You know, he's there.
That is absolutely fantastic.
Doing his impression of a Wookiee, which he happens to be playing.
Well,
So,
there was the moment listening to it, I'm like, is that Mr. Lordi doing Chewbacca roars? And then I did some research and it was like, oh, no, that is actually Chewbacca. That's excellent.
that's the real thing. That is the real thing. And it's funny. When we recorded his parts,
Mm-hmm.
The craziest thing was that when we compared the sounds that he made, and we compared them to the sounds from the movies, we didn't have to do that much. Had a semitone, pitching down.
Wow.
That was it. And then we slowed down that to have it a little bit, slower frequency, so vibrato there, and that's it. And I called Jonas and I said that because you are doing, he's doing it so good, he's doing that voice so fucking good.
Yeah.
And I said that actually, I know that you can tell the Star Wars people now that you can tell that they don't have to do the sound anymore, but because you already have the sound, you can do the sound, and they only need to do a little bit of tweaking, and that's the sound. And we compared it, and it's like, oh my fucking god, it's like, yeah.
It sounded fantastic. It was very, there was some questions running through my mind when I first heard it, but to hear that in a Lordi song, really, that hit home. And I noticed while listening through to the spooky Sextacular, I noticed a lot more movie references at the start of a lot of the songs too. There was an Evil Dead reference I noticed in there, and
references, and I'm really proud of those little movie tributes there because I made them myself.
yeah,
I made them all of a lot of the stuff on the albums is done by myself, but those little movie clips are even mixed by myself. Of course, there's Dylan Broda who's doing most of the voices. Hera is doing some of the voices, and their kids are actually doing the kids' voices. But all the soundscapes and everything that I did, and I was like, fucking this is fun. I mean, it's
awesome. Thank you for this. I'm sorry.
By the way, WhatsApp sound is so much better. The quality of the sound, oh my fucking god.
Yeah, if I'd known, I would have just done it this way. I'm sorry.
Fuck. So much better.
Yeah, it already sounds better on this. I should have just done that. I'm sorry. That sucks. Now there's going to be a big jump in sound with that. Yeah, if I can I'll just do my little outro thing and we can pop that in if that's cool.
Sure.
Sweet. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us today about some of the interesting stuff that we've found on these albums. Congratulations on releasing 7 albums in one hit. As a Lordi fan, I cannot thank you enough.
You're welcome.
You're
welcome. And remember, if it wouldn't be that evil, sinister label, you as a Lordi fan would have had 3 albums more.
Oh. That's so cruel. So cruel.
They're all good people.
Hey, look, they put out 7, and that's more than enough for me. Thank you. Well, it's never enough for me, but I can deal with that. I can suffer. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Mr. Lordi. And hopefully we'll see you down under eventually. We've had a few false starts.
I hope so too. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Good luck on your tour with Sabaton and The Who later on, hopefully next year, I believe. And
I hope so.
Can't wait to see the new songs on stage.
Yeah, let's see what we're going to be playing.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Cheers.
All right, we're back. That was a pretty cool chat with Mr. Lordi. Curt, how'd you find it?
It's so rad. I love chatting with him. It's very cool. He's very, very down to earth, which is awesome. So I've had a bit of contact with him over the years because I'm one of the few people that has a Lordi sleeve. And then I think I'm one of 2 that have Mr. Lordi standing in their house. I think he's the other one.
Yeah.
So
and it was nice to hear his answers to the non-norm questions, which is a big thing for us here at Hear2Zen. We don't follow the genres. We don't ask the same old stuff. So it was nice to get a bit of different perspective on the band and the album.
Exactly, something different. And as a Lordi fan, I mean, the opportunity to ask some weird questions. Yeah.
All right, so let's do a deep dive into the album, because people that are on streaming, as you said, have only got the one.
Yes.
So tell everyone what they can expect from 7 Lordi albums.
Well, yeah, it's very, very unique the way that they've done. Each one definitely sounds like they're from a fictional, it's a fictional album from an actual year. So you get that very 70s vibe on a lot of the earlier ones. So like Skelectric Dinosaur is a 1975 release, or it's designed to be 1975. So it sounds like the very biggest influence is obviously going to be Kiss on something like that. And you've got a very, almost Dressed to Kill sort of vibe on a lot of stuff. You get a little bit of AC/DC in there. It's hard rock. It's a rock album, which is really cool. And hearing somewhat of a lighter feeling from the band is pretty cool. I think on that one, so one of the things that they have done is they've got a couple of, not all of the albums, but most of the albums have a song that was on Collection. And so that then fits into the Lordiversity archive there. So for Skelectric Dinosaur, it's Blow My Fuse, which is, it was a very sort of stompy, just guitar, drums, and bass sort of thing. Works really, really nicely. And if you're a fan of older sort of Kiss, very early Kiss and very early AC/DC and that sort of pub rock almost, it's really cool to hear that from Lordi. It's a really weird sort of... Even
the title is a very AC/DC title.
Yeah, and it's got a really sort of, it's got that vibe. It's got that, sort of dynamite and whiskey kind of vibe, which is great. It's sort of, it's punchy without being over the top, which is really cool. In contrast to Superflytrap, which is, it's a full disco album. It's proper disco, which is great. And so you get some really, really interesting sort of like funk. It's very 79. I think 79 was the year that they sort of set it as. So, very big, almost Motown sort of choruses, again, taking inspiration from stuff like Dynasty, maybe a little bit of Unmasked in there, but it's that very sort of, it's a monster John Travolta, which is cool. Goes great with the platform roots they've already got.
Smart of them to actually release that now, considering the Foo Fighters did the Disco DG's album. So probably, whether they did it deliberately or not, it's a pretty good way to piggyback and get some interest is to do that as well.
Absolutely. One of the really cool things as well, if you go through and actually look at the writing credits for a lot of the songs, especially off Superflytrap, but throughout the whole discography, Tracy Lipp, who's worked with them from like Get Heavy, the very first album onwards, is in one of their short films as well. Has got writing credits with Mr. Lordi on a lot of these songs. So they feel, while they're very different, they feel very Lordi, which is great. And they've kept that sort of the core influences of Lordi and their core sort of influences to the recording process really, really well. Zombimbo is the one that anybody who's listened to Collection, that's off Superflytrap, and it's that very same sort of thing. You get the disco strings and stuff like that. It's really, it shouldn't work, but it does. It's very fun.
Do they update them from the old version, or it's just like a carbon copy?
No, they have been. I don't know whether it's all of the tracks, but most have been re-recorded, which is really rad.
Good.
It's nice to hear the same song but slightly updated. And as somebody that big Star Wars fan, I'm fine with people going back and tweaking shit after they've released it. Why not?
Sure.
So each of the albums still gets a Scarctic Circle gathering. So your same little intro tracks that have been there on almost every Lordi album. I think the only one that we didn't get one at the start was To Beast or Not To Beast. And that actually came at the end, which was a nice little throw off, but they're almost like a little mini trailer. They set the scene, they set the mood, and you get one that's tailor-made for each album, which is really cool. So if you are a Lordi fan like I am and a collector of all the songs, then you get that little morsel that you used to, which is always really cool. So We go to Masterbeast From The Moon, which is proggy. The proggy sort of album. It's very
Maideny, like.
No, a little bit more, almost sort of Pink Floyd Rush, a little bit. Very. It's probably one of the harder ones for me to get into, just because that's not the sort of I'm Alice Cooper sort of thing, as opposed to a little bit more long-winded. We get some pretty long tracks on that, including like Moonbeast is 6 minutes 29, but then you've got Church of the Succubus, which is like a 12-minute song. Right. And so that's one of the really cool things about these albums is they are full-length albums. They're like 40 minutes to an hour. It's pretty long for these sort of ones. It ends up being like nearly 5 hours worth of music in this solid collection, which is was one of the big things that we were, at least as Lordi fans, were wondering was, are you gonna get full albums? Are we only gonna get snippets? Like, how is this gonna work? Are they just gonna be EPs? No, balls to the wall full stuff, which is really cool. Masterbeast From The Moon has no songs that were released on Collection, so something a little different there, which is cool. It's interesting to hear, and I think it's almost like a lighter version of the tracks off the Demonarchy side of Monstereophonic. Back in 2016, they released Monstereophonic, which was a half and half album. And it was, the first half was very classic Lordi songs, so your short, little horror movie sounding ones, massive big choruses, very melodic, very classic Lordi. And then just really heavy concept album for the second half. And it was two totally different sides of the album. And so this is probably the closest that you'll get to that, at least like song structure wise, which is cool.
Cool.
Then you get my favorite, which is Abusement Park, which is just the greatest album title I've ever heard of.
That's
I
really
absolutely
cool,
love
man.
that. It's right up there with the Monsterican dream for me, is just Abusement Park. Mr. Lordi does love his wordplay, which is really cool. And yeah, there's some great stuff on that. It's probably the closest to this sort of Lordi sound that I think of. So that very sort of 1986, 1987 Wasp, real sort of ballsy heavy metal, like hair metal.
Yep.
Really, really solid with that. You get the SCG4 minus, it's the Carnival Barker, which you get Ralph Ruiz back in doing his little spins for the front. Abusement Park is a great track. There's a song called Gur, which is my favorite, which we touched on in the interview, and it's the Chewbacca song. It's got Chewbacca and Millennium Falcon references, and it's great fun. Pinball Machine is another standout for that, which I really, really like. And they've done a music video off one of the later albums called Borderline, which it's set in a ghost train, and they Lordified a ghost train. And so now I want to know if we're going to get a Lordi pinball machine, because I will put down money on a Lordi pinball machine.
There you will.
And so you get Up to No Good is the repeat track off that one, which is really, really nice. And I know a lot of fans really liked that song off Collection. It's got a real sort of classic, fist in the ass kind of, Lordi song. It's pretty rad. Very close second for me as far as the albums go is Humanimals, which is almost White Snake, the Scorpions kind of huge AOR sounding thing.
Nice.
Really
Journey.
Cool. It's pretty rad. It starts with a telethon as well. So it's almost, you get your Christian telethon that then zaps people through a TV. It's weird. Very weird intro. Borderline, which is the Ghost Train music videos off that, which is really cool. So a couple of the songs off this one have been released as singles, which is Borderline, and the other one was, I can't remember, Girl in a Suitcase. I should be able to remember that, which have been released as a A and B side off one of their singles. Really, really cool. A lot of Lordi fans really responded, especially to Girl in a Suitcase. It sounds like it's straight off the Dead Ache album, maybe a Dead Ache Babes for Breakfast mix. So it's a very classic Lordi sound to that. And again, it's really cool with these albums that they're such varied sounds, but they still just sound like Lordi, which is cool. It's really, really nice. There's a Paul Stanley song on that album.
Oh no.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a song. This one was on Collection as well. It's a song called "Like a Bee to the Honey," so you can guess exactly which era of Kiss that one's from.
Yeah.
And it has a saxophone solo on it by Michael Monroe from Hanoi Rocks, which is it's cheesy. It's very, very good. And a lot of, I think that one dropped just after Ghost released the Prequel album that also had a saxophone solo in. So it was kind of like a lot of Lordi fans were like, what is going on here? It's really, really weird to hear that in the middle of a song like that. So very, very fun album. I think a lot of Lordi fans are going to respond really positively to that because it's just, massive sounding. It's really fun. Abracadabra is where we go really heavy.
Right.
And so that's very much your almost Slayer, the sort of Lordi sound that we got off, again, the Theatera side of the Monsteriophonic disc.
Yep.
So you get that as Lordi was starting to get into a much heavier sound. So stuff off, if you've listened to the Sextravaganza album, it's very much that same sort of thing. There's a very modern metal sort of sounding to it. Really cool. A couple of songs off that one have been released as well, which is Abracadaver and Beast of Both Worlds, which again, we got a music video for Abracadabra. And then I had Beast of Both Worlds just on repeat as soon as it dropped for like a week and a half, because it makes you feel like you could rip something in half. It's really, really, it's pretty powerful sort of stuff, which is cool. And then you've got Spooky Sextravaganza Spectacular. And the closest thing I could say to this is if Lordi did a Rob Zombie album, it's very much what you get.
Even the title says it.
And the album cover is very much the same, and you've got sort of a home movie sort of intro to it, like they're filming a home movie sort of thing. We've got some absolutely fantastic titles off this one, which is great. And we did have a song on Collection, which was "Shake the Baby Silent," which again sounds like Dragula when it's playing. It's a really it's a song. It's very, very cool. But Lizard of Oz is my favorite with that because it's just the weirdest song title I've heard in a long time. And it's a pretty catchy chorus. It's a powerful song. It's not quite what I was expecting, but a lot of what I was hoping for with this sort of album. So everything sort of hits just in the right way, but in a completely different thing from the album before, which is really fun.
Oh, that's cool.
I also really like "If It Ain't Broken, I Must Break It."
That's the best song title ever.
Why not? And that one rounds out the Collection, which is again, it's just the most bonkers idea, and it's executed really, really nicely.
Yeah.
That being said, sitting down and trying to listen to the whole thing, like everything in sync or in sequence is a tough listen, even for diehard Lordi fans. It's a lot of new material to try and adjust to, which is interesting.
Yeah, and for me, being not a huge Lordi fan, just knowing a bit about them, knowing where they take their influences from and everything like that. The big thing for me is we've gone from starved for live music to punished with new physical music.
Yep.
So I think even though it might be a tough listen for some, I think it was a really smart move on their part because we just don't know what's around the corner, so people can choose to digest this how they want.
Absolutely. And, as has been said, like the Lordi tours for Collection, they only got a couple of dates in before Corona shut everything down. And, it's been delayed a couple other times. What else do you do with your time?
Yeah.
Like, what better way to do that? Don't just release one album, release an entire fictional back catalog, make it really, really good. Smash out some fantastic songs is just such a unique way of dealing with it. and it is done just magnificently through it. Very, very much exactly what I was hoping to come out of 2021.
And it sets the scene if they want to do multiple touring cycles for the next few years as they become available. They've got it open to them.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know many Lordi fans that wouldn't go and see an entire, Masterbeast From The Moon show.
Yeah.
Or, spooky Sextravaganza Spectacular. Like, why not? That sounds great. It's your first date night. That's just the best way to go.
Exactly. So if you were going to introduce Lordi to someone on this mammoth release, pick 2 or 3 songs where you go, this is where you go to?
That's a tough one. I'm gonna have a look at the track listings and try and work out, because it's all just so very Lordi.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I absolutely love Girl in a Suitcase is very, very good, but Victims of the Romance, that was one of the of Humanimals. Was I listened to it the first time. It's got this massive choral opening to it, and then straight into like a Rocky Like a Hurricane guitar intro. And I got like, it hit halfway through the first verse, and I was like, wait, what the fuck? I gotta go back and listen to that. I gotta listen to that again. And I played it through like 3 or 4 times because it just hits you like a ton of bricks. It's really, really good. Victims of the Romance reminds me very much of like the Lordi that they were when I first got into them. Very much a Rocklips sort of thing. Roller Coaster is really good off Abusement Park. I really, really like that. And then like Believe Me is one of the ones off Superflytrap. It's been released as a single already. I had on repeat for days as well. I think that'd give you a really good cross section on what to expect from this, and just the sheer amount of just wacko that you get, just completely bonkers from beginning to end. That'd probably nail that down.
Cool. And finishing up, is there anything that you want to tell everyone about, your chat with Mr. Lordi and the albums, just to sort of sum it up?
Look, if you're in Europe, they are touring with Sabaton and The Who. That's the HU, not the Pete Townsend one. If you have the opportunity to go and see them, absolutely go and see them. They are I haven't seen them live, but I have seen numerous live videos of them. Go and see them. It's a hell of a show. They are a band that deserves as much support as possible because of the amount of effort that they put in. I mean, it's not easy to wear 20 pounds of rubber up on stage and then sing and perform for an hour and a half. Check them out. Check out their music videos if you're a fan of hard rock and you like horror movies, because damn, you get many horror movies from that. It's just awesome. It's like if Gua were better, and I'm gonna get some hate for that one. As a massive Gua fan, Gua but 80s. They're a one-of-a-kind band. This is a one-of-a-kind release, and really to have the balls to do, hey, look, let's just do 7 albums. Why not? Absolutely give it a listen. Check it out. Check them out as they drop if you want to do streaming, or I definitely urge you to go and buy the box set, because it's absolutely worth every cent.
Awesome, man. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for having the chat with Mr. Lordi. Thanks for educating us all.
Thanks for letting me. It's nice to actually be doing this, not just recreationally now. For once.
For once.
Yeah, have you heard the good word of the Lordi?
We now have.
Yeah, indeed. There's many, many more good words on every single one of those albums.
All right, man. Thank you so much for doing that for us, and thanks so much to Mr. Lordi for his time.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for thanks Mr. Lordi for having a chat with me.
Thank you for listening to the Zen Sessions presented by Hear2Zen magazine. If you are listening to us on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. If you are listening on one of the podcast platforms, please subscribe there. And don't forget to follow Hear2Zen Magazine on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.